Welcome back. 7 months ago, Attorney General Ken Paxton faced the possibility of removal from office via impeachment and potential prison time if found guilty of fraud. As of this week, he's free and clear of both threats, 2-0, so to speak, and politically stronger than he's ever been. Joining Stephen and I to discuss it all, a true heavyweight of Texas political analysis, Rice University's Dr. Mark Jones. Stephen, after years of sound and fury, this whimper of an outcome is the end result. Now, having heard from prosecutors and defense lawyers, I'm eager to hear your thoughts on the merits of this resolution.
I mean, you have to look at it's a tale of two tapes, right? I mean, Ken Paxton, like you mentioned, is 2-0. He was acquitted of being impeached in the state legislature, and now this. But there's a narrative that is going on from the right, which is going on from Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick and others, saying Ken Paxton had no fault. Nothing happened. When, in my opinion, if you still paid a fine and you're still doing community service and you're the top cop in the state and you're having to do, ethics training, something happened. But he's riding high. Teflon is the best word to describe it.
Okay, Mark, while I'm guessing this deal didn't trigger any street parties in Collin County, I suspect it did solidify Paxton's status as a major GOP force moving forward. Agree?
Definitely. I mean, when we combine this with his innocence, or at least acquittal in the impeachment trial, it just shows the base that a lot of these charges, at least in their eyes, are unmerited, and that Paxton is somebody who is being attacked from the center right, the left, and anywhere not on the right for effectively being too conservative, which in Texas, you never get hurt by being too conservative when you have to compete in a Republican primary.
All right, Stephen, with a felony fraud conviction off the table, Paxton is almost out of the jailhouse woods, so to speak, but not quite. Is there still a puncher's chance the AG gets sucked into the federal prosecution of his buddy, indicted Austin real estate developer Nate Paul?
I mean, I think Ken Paxton and his wife and everyone else on his team is feeling really good right now. But the unknown is still that federal investigation that has been looming for some time. And now Nate Paul appears to be complicit, at least in his part of things. It's a matter of, will Nate Paul take AG Paxton down? And so it's still a lot of unknown. But right now, outside of some of those primary races for Ken Paxton, I would say he's the new kingmaker for the Republican Party in Texas, to be honest.
All right, Mark, no question Ken Paxton's political stock is on the rise. He's a hero in the eyes of much of the Texas Republican base, and he's tight with former and potentially future President Trump. Do you think a bid for John Cornyn's Senate seat is coming? And if not, what would he go after instead?
Well, I think Ken Paxton has two real options. One, of course, is to go after Cornyn's seat. It's quite possible that Cornyn's not going to seek re-election, and if Paxton wants it, he would have the inside track on that candidacy. He also has to decide if he would prefer to go to the U.S. Senate or if he wants to remain as AG here in Texas. I think from a criminal perspective, a lot hinges on Donald Trump's election efforts in November. If Trump is elected president, I suspect all of these federal charges simply disappear. However, he could be more complicated if Biden is reelected and remains in charge of the DOJ. We might see an investigation that could hinder his primary bid in 2026.
All right, Stephen, we've talked a lot on this program about the steady drift to the hard right by the Texas GOP. I'm guessing this development will only propel it further. You agree?
Yeah, I agree, and that's why I say kingmaker. And some people may question that because if you look at his record in the primary, I mean, Ken Paxton supported, like 40 or 50 people, and so in the overall number, yeah, a lot of his candidates lost. But with the momentum and the way that the Republican Party in Texas is moving, I think Ken Paxton's name may carry more weight than some other politicians, maybe a Dan Patrick or a Governor Abbott, depending on the situation. It really is going to make a big difference if Dade Phelan loses his speakership and loses his seat down in South Texas. And so we'll have to wait and see but Ken Paxton has a lot of juice right now.
All right, Mark, Team Wilkes and Dunn, I call him, have sunk a lot of money into backing Paxton. Is it fair to say the investment looks to be paying off handsomely?
Very much so. Tim Dunn, we know in particular, is a very smart businessman, makes great investments. He made a great political investment here. He stuck with Ken Paxton through the impeachment trial and all of his legal troubles, and he's been rewarded by having a strong ally in the conservative wing of the Republican Party who is likely to be able to continue as AG for as long as he wants and could potentially become the next U.S. Senator if he runs against John Cornyn or attempts to seat that seat if Cornyn doesn't run for re-election.
Stephen, quickly, you think John Cornyn regrets that tweet when he said something like, it's hard to run for Senate from jail?
Hey, I don't think he regrets anything, but I can't wait to see possibly Ken Paxton running for Senate.
All right, we'll end it there. You can see the interview or any of our past interviews by going to our YouTube pages. You can also visit our social media sites to continue the conversation.
It's always something in Texas, and next week we'll have another hot topic. So be sure to let us know what you think the issue is, and we'll see you next week.